This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. We begin overseas with the escalating tensions between the United States and Iran and calls for diplomacy by Germany. President Donald Trump said Thursday that an American warship shot down an Iranian drone in the Straits of Hormuz. However, there are conflicting reports with Iranian leaders saying they have released video showing the drone wasn't shot down. Mark Martin joins us now in the CBN newsroom with the latest. Mark, what's going on?
George, the president said the Navy amphibious assault ship, the USS Boxer, took defensive action against the drone, but military officials in Iran denied the incident. Trump said the Iranian drone got within 1,000 yards of the ship. It reportedly ignored several calls to stand down and was threatening the safety of the ship and the ship's crew. Despite the warnings, the drone did not turn away, and the U.S. warship brought it down using jamming equipment.
This is the latest of many provocative and hostile actions by Iran against vessels operating in international waters. The United States reserves the right to defend our personnel, our facilities, and interests, and calls upon all nations to condemn Iran's attempts to disrupt freedom of navigation and global commerce.
The German foreign minister held a news conference requesting that the international community use diplomatic tools to prevent a dangerous escalation of tensions in Iran. Meanwhile, Iran state television says Revolutionary Guard forces seized a foreign tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. The report says the crew is accused of smuggling oil and did not say which country the crew was from. The Associated Press reports U.S. officials have been suspicious if the Panamanian flagged oil tanker Raya, which you see in this video, or Rhea, had actually been seized in Iranian territorial waters. George?
Mark, I'm curious. I understand that the U.S. is deploying troops to the Middle East in response to the escalating tensions?
Yes, the U.S. is sending hundreds of troops to Saudi Arabia as part of the Trump administration's response to the growing tensions with Iran. A New York Times report cites Defense Department officials who confirmed about 500 soldiers will be deployed to that country. George, back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Sajid Sangari joins us now by Skype from Chicago. He was raised in Iran and served in combat in the Middle East as Special Operations Forces soldier. Colonel, thank you so much for coming on the show. More U.S. troops, as my colleague Mark said there, are being sent to the region. Is this a dangerous escalation here? How do you think Iran may respond?
As much as it's a dangerous escalation, George, Iran is going to push back against us. And the reason it does that, because it wants to show the rest of the Islamic world that it's actually standing against the United States, while the rest of its adversaries within the Islamic world, to include the Saudis, are working with the United States. So this just a means by them to be able to solidify their hold within the region. As far as we're concerned, we have kept those doors open, to include even when we put sanctions against Iran. We've kept the port of Charbagh open in order for India and Iran to be able to do business, develop that port, allow our airlines to run into Afghanistan to put pressure on other possible adversaries that we have in the region.
There are some reports that Iran may be quietly seeking a resumption of negotiations. How likely is this?
Well, they have been. They have been doing it for months now. Once Iran came to the table under the previous administration, it was very likely that they were going to come to the table currently. We have always had back-channel discussions with Iran, even from the previous administration and today's administration. That constantly takes place. We won't see it in the news media, but this is part of the process of that negotiation to get to an end result of a new agreement or possibly a treaty in the future.
It seems that only a few of America's allies are supporting U.S. Security efforts in the Strait of Hormuz, the British, the Saudis, and some of the Gulf states. Why aren't more nations helping?
It's just competition, George. That's the bottom line. And even to include, as much as our allies might be helping with security, they're more interested in their own peace. When the British seized that oil tanker that belongs to the Iranians, it opened up new negotiations for them to be able to release some of a hostage that they have in Iran. So they're in it for their interests, to include the fact that when we put sanctions against Iran, it was the British, the Germans, and the French who were circumventing those sanctions because they wanted to make sure that their business interests within the markets of Iran or the bazaar Iran over the next 20 years are secure.
Absolutely. Is President Trump's approach, Colonel, working? What does he and our viewers need to know about dealing with Iran? We just have a few seconds.
Well, Iran is an Islamic republic. Its name is Islamic Republic. It's going to have to come to negotiations from that perspective under Islamic rules. But I think that the president's approach is to divide the moderates and the extremists, for a better term, internally in Iran. And hopefully we get to a new agreement at the end of the day.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I hope you will come back again soon.
Will do.
Okay, wonderful. We will have more on these stories and others on Faith Nation this evening. You can watch it right here on the CBN News channel. Dangerously hot temperatures are scorching much of the nation and putting emergency officials on edge. The National Weather Service expects more than 100 local heat records to be shattered. In Washington, D.C., Chicago, Philly, Charleston, and Syracuse, triple digits with heat indexes peaking around 115 degrees. According to the Centers for Disease Control, extreme heat kills more than 600 people each year.
This means that if you have a neighbor who is vulnerable, who is elderly, who is sick or otherwise infirm, please make a special effort to check on them over these next few days.
Veterinarians are also warning pet owners to not forget about their pets, saying to keep dogs in the shade off hot sidewalks and keep their water bowls pretty much full. Okay, AccuWeather meteorologist Regina Miller has more on what to expect in the upcoming forecast.
Well, take a look at how much of the country right now is under an excessive heat warning, where you're seeing the darker shading pink. That is where we're going to see temperatures with a real feel well over 100 degrees because of the heat and humidity. So we've got this heat wave across parts of the Northeast where it's expanded to for the weekend. And so temperatures are going to be running about 10 degrees above average. Today is not as bad as what we're going to see for tomorrow and then on into Sunday. Now, today is going to be a hot one, 97 in Philadelphia, 98 in D.C., 97 in Richmond. We'll be at 91 in Boston, New York. Morning clouds will give way to some hazy sunshine. But the real feel, even for today, in the areas here along the coast, so D.C., for example, the real feel is around 105 to 110 to what it feels like when you're actually out and about in the heat and humidity. And then up towards Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, it's going to feel like it's about 100 to 105 degrees. Now, notice tomorrow for your Saturday, that dangerous heat where you're seeing the darker shading of red, 105 to 110, that extends all the way up the I-95, even into New England for tomorrow. Our temperatures tomorrow in Boston gets to 98 degrees, same thing into New York City. In Philadelphia and D.C. down to Richmond, our temperature is at the century mark. And so because of this excessive heat, the New York City mayor has declared a heat emergency through Sunday. So there's going to be cooling centers located in libraries, community and senior centers as well. And also Philadelphia's mayor has declared a heat emergency through Sunday. Same thing with the cooling centers. They'll have extended hours at libraries, public pools, community and senior centers. Now, when's the last time that we saw heat in excess or of around 100 degrees Fahrenheit? Well, in Boston, it was in 2011, 2012 into New York City and in Philadelphia, Baltimore in 2016. Now, some thunderstorms head this way on Sunday. Once those drop through, those are going to bring some relief, but not yet on Sunday. Sunday's still going to be a hot one. Could see a thunderstorm around Boston, but check out the temperatures here. Philadelphia and D.C. still going to be at 100 degrees on Sunday.
Coming up, how a former porn star and her husband are taking a stand against pornography and hoping to win hearts for Jesus. That story right after the break.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem.
As the nations rage,
you can stand with Israel.
History is being written, and I want to be a part of it.
Call 1-800-700-7000 and get to life.
This is our nature as a country.
Discover the untold story of how Israeli volunteers are changing the world.
We consider it our duty to reach out and help others around the world.
For a gift of $10 or more, you can own the acclaimed CBN documentary To Life.
To treat a human, no matter what he is, which religious he have, which color he is, this is what I'm doing.
Support Israel in their time of need. Get to Life, now available on DVD. Call 1-800-700-7000 or log on to cbn.com.
And I wish that other people throughout the world could see this side of Israel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
And welcome back to the CBN News Channel. Former porn star Britney De La Mora and her husband Richard are set to pastor an online church. Britney recently made the announcement on social media. My colleague Charlene Aaron spoke with them about XXX Church and its mission to empower people to break free from pornography addiction. Take a look.
Britney, for those who may not know your story, how did you get involved in the sex industry?
I just grew up with so much rejection and so much brokenness that I was really searching for love in all the wrong places. And, you know, just the short version of it is that my need for affirmation and, you know, my desire to get away from some of the people that I had been hurt by led me into the adult film industry.
And you encountered XXX Church while you were in the sex industry. What was that experience like?
So we used to, in the porn industry, we'd go to porn conventions, and that's where you sell your product and meet with your fans. And so I would go there, and I would always see this huge booth that said, Jesus loves porn stars. And, you know, it sparked curiosity in me. And there was this one woman who was always there. Her name was Rachel. And she just had, I used to tell her, I don't know what it is about you, but you just have so much light. Like you're just so bright, you know, like I wanted to be around her. And so every convention I would look for her. And, you know, the people that were serving with the ministry there would come and they'd bring me Bibles and lip gloss and coffee. And I used to ask them, okay, well, how much do I owe you for this? And they were like, no, you don't owe us anything. Like, just take the coffee. We just want to be a blessing. And so to me, that spoke multitudes to me, because my whole life, I always had people that wanted to take from me, but never did I have anyone that actually just wanted to give to me with expecting nothing in return. And so they continue to plant seeds in me that Jesus loved me. They would pray with me. And, you know, they just made such a dynamic difference in my life. And so when I got out of the porn industry, I actually reached out to them because my husband had given me a magazine that he found at our church that said XXX Church on it. So he gave me this magazine. I reached out to them, and we ended up getting reconnected via email.
Amazing. And Richard, now here you guys have been now asked to lead XXX Church. How did that all come about? And tell us about your reaction to being appointed its pastors now.
You know, that came about with Pastor Craig. Pastor Craig was in the shower, and as he was taking a shower, God spoke to him and he said, Craig, pass the baton, pass XXX Church to Richard and Britney De La Mora. And when he heard this, it was like as clear as day. So when he heard that message from the Lord, the next morning, he sent us an audio message telling what God told him. And from there, he asked us, how do you feel about that? And Britney and I, we were amazed. We were thrilled. And the reason for it is because the XXX Church played such an indelible difference to my wife's life for literally helping her with almost everything. And it's just amazing that we get to come back into this ministry, helping others the way XXX Church helped my wife.
Rich, talk a little bit about the porn problem that we see in our country. So many people, men and women, are addicted to pornography. How big of a problem are we talking?
Absolutely. I mean, the pornography is just such an epidemic right now. Wherever you look, wherever you go, the moral standard is dropping lower and lower and lower. And it almost seems like, you can go on your phone or anywhere and you could access porn. And the reality is that these are the battles that we're facing here today. My wife and I, we have a daughter coming in, and I'm thinking about her, and I'm thinking about this society we're in. And if we don't learn to go and confront this issue and attack this issue, then this issue is going to be prevalent in our relationships, in our marriage, and it's going to affect us. Therefore, we believe it's our mandate to go out there and help people with the pornography issue, because when porn starts to get into your system, get into your life, it affects you. It affects the way that you think. It affects your relationships. It affects what you desire. It affects your purity and your walk with God. So right now, my wife and I, we are on it like no other right now, doing our very best, going out there, helping people with this issue, and just really learning just to eradicate this problem that's going on today.
Amazing. What is your hope for XXX Church, especially you, Britney, with the fact that you have the history with them? What is your hope?
So I have a huge heart for outreach. I love going to the porn conventions. I love the fact that we get to hand out thousands of Bibles in a weekend. We usually bring between 10 and 20,000 Bibles, and we get to hand those out. We get to talk to people about Jesus. So I love encountering, like the last convention that I went to, I encountered an atheist who she just didn't want to have anything to do with God, because her whole life she was told that she was going to go to hell. So she figured, like, why seek a God that's going to send me to hell? And when I got to tell her about the grace of God and what he's done in my life and how he's pursuing her, she looked at me and said, I never knew that Jesus loved me the way that you said. And she said, I'm going to go to church after this.
Beautiful testimony. After the break, we'll take a look at what's trending on faithwire.com. That just in a moment. Stay with us.
Give me that. Bye. Sure, life is busy, but I found a way to make a huge difference in people's lives. I guess you could say I'm changing the world right here from home. I bring medical supplies and doctors to people in need, and dig wells so that villagers can have clean and safe water to drink. I make it possible to preach the gospel in over 100 countries, including right here in America. And when disaster strikes, I'm there, providing food, thank you, and emergency supplies to give people hope again. Every day, CBN and I are making the world a better place. Here you go. My life is hectic, so I joined CBN through Pledge Express. My bank does all the work, and I know that my gift is being used where it's needed most. So become a CBN partner and join Pledge Express, because you can do a world of good right from where you are. Hi, good morning. Are you ready to get started?
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Welcome back. Here with this week's trending stories from Faith Wire, CBN's Jessica Chaco and Dan Andros.
Well, a pro-life advocate travels down to the border to provide supplies to mothers and children. This may seem like an interesting cause for an anti-abortion spokeswoman, but for Destiny Herden de la Rosa, it's all a part of her pro-life ethic. Here to tell us more, managing editor of faithwire.com, Dan Andros. Dan?
Yeah, she's a really interesting case, and one of the things that frustrated her was seeing all this bickering back and forth from the left and the right. In particular, this notion that somehow pro-life people like herself don't care about life beyond the womb. That's all they care about. And so she partnered with Abby Johnson, who has an organization herself that's working on helping migrant children caught up in this border crisis. And they've been active down there, raising over $120,000 for the Bottles to Border campaign. And Destiny said that Abby's been doing a great job, and she said that it was a false premise to suggest that people in the pro-life community only care about children before they are born. And she said she's seen Abby working alongside her tirelessly. And of course, Abby Johnson is a famed pro-life advocate who was featured in the movie Unplanned, former Planned Parenthood worker who left the abortion industry. But what's extra interesting about Destiny is that she's not even a Christian. She considers herself an agnostic, but is very much attached to this pro-life cause, so much so that she was actually kicked out of the left-leaning Women's March for being pro-life.
A Kentucky church is building tiny homes to help their community's struggling homeless population. Crossroads Community Baptist Church is working to construct 16 homes right on church property. Well, Dan, this is such a creative idea, and it's for a wonderful cause.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And Pastor Grant Hasty is giving an update on this story. You may have remembered this from last year. It was when it was first announced that they were going to do it. And so we checked in with them to see how things were going. And they had started to try to begin construction on 20 homes was the initial project. But it got reduced to 16 because they were having trouble with different permits that were languishing in city council and in the townships, offices there where they have to get permits for everything. But he actually said it was a blessing that process sort of got held up because during that time they decided to reduce the number of homes to 16 homes and use the extra land there for some other community-based things that would also be activities they could do to help people that are recovering from addiction and homelessness and sort of help the community in that way. So they consider that a blessing. They've got a few of these underway. Construction on the 5th home is beginning. They've already got 10 people lined up and sort of ready to go and live in these homes. They said they're going to have no trouble filling in the 16, which is a good thing for these people who are struggling with addiction and homelessness. 32% of the people in that area live below the poverty line. So this is a great idea by this pastor and by this church.
Thanks, Dan. For stories like these and more, visit FaithWire on Facebook and on the web at faithwire.com.
Coming up, remembering the life of a well-loved co-host of the 700 Club, Ben Kinchlow.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
It's like a great attraction. It's not to chain reaction, but almost satisfaction.
Ben Kinchlow, a former host of the 700 Club, passed away yesterday. His co-workers here at CBN considered him family and remember his big smile, great sense of humor, and a very booming voice. He will be greatly missed by his family and friends. You can go to cbnnews.com for more on this report and reflections on Ben's life by Terry Mewson and Gordon Robertson from today's The 700 Club. We leave you with a few moments from his time here at CBN.
This is wait a minute, I am not ready for that sign in heaven yet. All right.
The son of a Methodist minister, Ben served 13 years in the U.S. Air Force, and after accepting Christ in the 70s, directed drug and alcohol rehab programs in Texas and founded a ministry for teens. After being invited to speak on the 700 Club, Ben was asked back to host the program.
Well, you didn't know you were going to be a host. You thought you were just coming down from Killeen to be with us.
Exactly. I had no idea, no clue.
So you came here thinking what, that you're going to just help with the phones or something?
No, yeah, I thought I was going to be out in the audience. You can see we had a director, and he would be out there with the people and say, you know, Pat, on the cell, we just got a call that came in from somebody. You know, and I could do that, right? Yeah. Big deal. So I'm sitting out there, and then I'm doing that, you know, and then I'm shaking hands with the council. Hey, how you doing? So good to see you. What a pleasure to be and everything. You know, and I said, no, there's a floor director kept looking at me. And I thought, wonder why he's looking at me. But anyway, I just kept shaking hands. And I said, Mr. Kinchlow, we got about 2 minutes for air. Would you take your place? So I thought, well, they want to hear some more of my testimony. So I went over and sat down in the guest chair. Yeah. And I was sitting in the guest chair, you know, and just looking out there going, hey, and he kept looking at me real strangely. And I said, Mr. Kinchlow, we got about a minute before we go in the air. Would you please take your place? And I thought, you know what? This would be a great time to ask where my place is. So I said, well, where am I supposed to sit? He looked like I'd punched him in the belly. He said, what? They didn't tell you? I said, tell me what? I said, Pat and Henry and Israel, you're the host of the 700 Club.
This led to a full-time co-hosting slot, and he also assumed the role of helping start Operation Blessing.
He called me up here and we talked about this vision he had from the Lord. Lord, the Lord gave me Isaiah 58. And he said, we're going to go out and help the poor. We're going to feed the hungry. And we're going to send. He said, that's great, Pat. That's absolutely spectacular. He said, yes, we're going to call it Operation Blessing. I thought, man, that's great. I'm sitting over in a chair like this. I said, Pat, that's just great. He said, we'll call it Operation Blessing. I said, that's great. He said, yeah, and you're going to be in charge.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that, you know?
Famous for his engaging interview style, he also loved the opportunity to share Christ with the viewers of the 700 Club.
You can say, Lord Jesus, come into my life. He'll change your life. He'll give you what you've really been looking for all of your life. And yes, all of those pieces that are missing, you're saying, why doesn't this satisfy me? Why am I still have this nagging longing for something? It's Jesus.